132. And if you pass through the land, and do not teach yourselves the teaching of the laws and recommendations of the wellspring of all existence creation, or curtail the explanation teaching, then that shall be rightful for you if you nonetheless hold to and follow the laws and recommendations. 133. If you are afraid that one's knowing in the truth may assail you, because they stand up as open enemies against the truth and against you, then you shall not acquire procure weapons of Gevalt and of death in order to fight against them whenever possible. Instead, try to find a peaceful way of avoiding them or using words of clarity, rationality, to move them to insight, rationality, and to peace. 134. And if you as ones who are knowing in the truth find yourselves amongst ones who are knowing in the truth and have to undertake a deed work, or whatever else with them, then allow them to stand with you, undertake it together / cooperate, but take care that they do not raise up, make threats with weapons of villainy, disingenuousness, against you and against the teaching of truth in order to cast you down, coerce you into their belief assumptions. And if they attempt to carry out your casting down, then put them behind you, turn your back on them and go away, but you shall be on your guard, watchful, because their weapons of villainy, disingenuousness, can strike you again and again at any time in order to demoralize you. 135. The enemies of the truth and the enemies of the teaching of the prophets, and therefore also the enemies of the teaching of truth, of the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all things and all life creation, by which it is meant the confused people and its false prophets and priests and servants of gods and servants of tin gods, who make their daughters into like-minded ones and believers. They like it if you do not provide yourselves with weapons of precaution and of clear-sightedness, rationality, and leave aside all your watchfulness, so can they may suddenly assail you, lead you into confusion, take away, pervert your knowledge of the truth. Against the enemies of the truth it is permitted and rightful for you to take their weapons of villainy, disingenuousness, away from them through cleverness, rationality, by striking back, countering their false words and teachings, so that they wash themselves clean and heal themselves of their illness, false belief, and lay down their weapons of villainy, disingenuousness, and slander, calumny, against the teaching of truth. But at all times be on your guard, watchful, because the intrigues, guilefulness of those who lay claim against the truth and the teaching of truth and the teaching of the laws and recommendations of creation are manifold in their attempts to delude the ones who are knowing in the truth and to turn them away from their insight into the teaching of truth, so that they shall fall prey to the traps of piety, religion, and of belief assumptions, as well as of the priests and servants of gods and servants of tin gods, because truly they have disparaging, villainous / despicable methods in order to achieve their intentions or purposes. 136. And if you are learning the teaching of the prophets, the teaching of truth, the teaching of spirit, the teaching of life, and therefore the teaching of the laws and recommendations of the wellspring of beauty creation, then remember with a prayer, invocation / edification, also your inner world consciousness, in contemplation, meditation, at the same time, so that you align yourselves towards true love and consonance, harmony, as well as to peace and freedom in your inner nature, and do this when seated or standing, when walking or when you are on your back, on your belly or lying on your side, and when you have finished learning, then make prayers, invocations / edification, to your inner world consciousness, according to your need, so that its unfolding evolution may progress and everything may go well with you in all things, and carry out your prayers, invocations / edification, according to your needs, since you do not have to select specific hours for this, as you shall do for special contemplations, meditations, or initiations. 137. And never cease to search for the depths of the truth and the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all truth creation, because if you do not do so, then you will suffer and your inner world consciousness will remain unfruitful, remain fallow, And as you suffer, so also people of your kind, fellow human beings, with whom you have a dealings, will also suffer. However, do not hope for things of cognition which you cannot hope for, shall not experience. Because if you were to gain cognitions that are beyond your discernment understanding, then you would not become knowing, conscious, and wise, but would fall prey to confusion of consciousness / confusions of the senses. 138. The true prophets have brought the teaching of truth, the teaching of spirit, the teaching of life to you, the teaching of the laws and recommendations of the wellspring of all existence, creation, and its appearance, nature, so that you may not judge, decree, and fight unfairly between people of your kind, human beings, but that you join yourselves with, fall in line with, the laws and recommendations as are given to you through the teaching of the prophets, so that you may not secede from the truth and do not become proponents of the ones who are unfaithful to the teaching of truth. And think about the true prophets from the line of Enoch. They did not come to earth to one people alone, but brought the teaching of truth, the teaching of spirit, the teaching of life to all peoples of your kind, humankind, all of humanity, so that everyone may experience the truth of the wellspring of existence, creation, and everyone may align themselves with its laws and recommendations. However, you have allowed that false prophets amongst you could bring delusional teachings, and that you were able to fall prey to these. Therefore you were disloyal to the path of the real truth and turned to gods and tin gods and their priests and other servants' hands / helpers, so that you could pray to them. And your scribes, who were entrusted by the prophets with upholding the teaching by setting it down in writing, they falsified and slandered, calumniated the teaching of the true prophets and obfuscated it, rendered it unrecognizable, in such a way that only a few grains of real truth are contained in it. 139. Truly, the fallible scribes who falsified, slandered, calumniated, and obfuscated, rendered unrecognizable the teaching of the prophets, shall be excused in spite of their disgraceful doings, because as they falsified, slandered, calumniated, and obfuscated, rendered unrecognizable the teaching of truth in their writings due to false insight understanding, they fell prey to an error. But there were some amongst the scribes who falsified, slandered, calumniated, and obfuscated, rendered unrecognizable the teaching of the true prophets deliberately, because it is directed against their own belief assumptions in gods and tin gods. 140. Truly, you do not love any people of your kind, fellow human beings, who are villains and unfair ones, irresponsible ones, but ask yourselves whether you are not yourselves also villains and unfair ones, irresponsible ones, so that you do not defend yourselves if you deceive yourselves. 141. Truly, you would like to conceal your malice and inequity and unfairness from people of your kind, fellow human beings. Yet you cannot keep it concealed, because you again and again forge intrigues, guilefulness, openly or in secret, and do evil and unfair things, irresponsible things, of all kinds. However, all your deeds are seen through and are not approved. 142. See, you defend your viciousness and your inequity, unfairness, and non-righteousness, consciencelessness, your lack of virtue and your drunkenness, desire, and bad habits, vice, yet you can never vindicate or defend them. Therefore you will find no advocates and no protectors amongst the righteous ones, conscientious ones, and fair ones, responsible ones, of your kind, fellow human beings.